magnificent presentation. Fantastic film. I think film that might have been an inspiration for our sort of subject of our next presentation, which is the Formal Naval Film, the pioneering work of A.J. West by David Clover. Now David was born and brought up in Portsmouth, living in a house which directly overlooks the harbour. He was introduced to the Our Navy story and the related family connection by his grandmother, Alfred West's daughter. David now looks after Our Navy website at www.ournavy.org.uk. He is the IT Development Manager at the Faculty of Mathematics, Computing and Technology at the Open University. David, we look forward to hearing what you've got to show us.
I'm also a singer, so I'm going to try this. My gallant crew, good morning.
Sir, good morning.
I hope you're all quite well.
Quite well. And you, sir?
I am in reasonable health and happy to be with you once more.
You do us proud, sir.
I just knew that had to be one. You can't believe it without that.
How do you follow that?
I'm going to do the slides first, actually. Okay. My great-grandfather, I never met, of course, he died in 1937. But alongside this rather fine maquette here, a bit of light, I'm going to put this one. Anybody recognise this?
Well, it's not soon.
It could be the podium.
I'll hold it up to the screen.
Okay. And the next thing to say is, that my great-grandfather, Alfred West, was a fantastic showman. You'll hear more about that in a minute. So I'm going to try this and see if it works. I got this from a pantomime I went to. It didn't work. But I'll just pass a few of these around. I should put lead weights in them.
Could have fired a broadside.
You'll hear more about this in a minute. I made these last night. Alfred West was born in 1857, and from 1881 he was the most fantastic photographer. He won prizes all around the world. Here we are. Shove these up there somewhere. Pass them amongst yourselves. He won prizes all around the world for his still photography. So although this is a programme today about film, you'll I'm sure forgive me if I start by talking about his career, because without seeing the work he did with still photography, it's rather difficult to understand where he came next. I've also got, for the benefit of the audience, various pamphlets and handouts which I've made, all of which I think can go to anybody who wants to see them. There's a button to press somewhere, is there, or do you press the button? You've got a button there? Oh, that one. Which button? So if I press this, down there. Alfred West, 1857, 1937, 80 years old when he died, which I think is a good augury for me. This is a photograph of Alfred West, which has been in the family for quite some time. Very sadly, the picture has actually been lost, but in the 1970s, my father and I made copies of all this and sent it to a man called John Barnes, who was a film historian in Cornwall, and as a result of having sent the photocopies of various ephemeral material to do with the West Our Navy series, I'm very pleased to say that we can reconstruct a great deal of the archive. In 1881, the census shows in Gosport at Eagle House these members of the West family. You can see occupation photographer George West. He was a carpenter originally and then became a photographer, largely because he was very good at making very small boxes, and that's what you needed for cameras in those days. George West, the son, photographer. Mary West, daughter, photographer. William West, 32, photographer. Maria West, 24, photographer, and she went on to form her own company called West and Dawson. Alfred West, the youngest, occupation photographer. Mary West, not quite ready to be a photographer yet, and one general servant. So that was the West household in 1881. very much devoted to photography. And this was the kind of thing which companies in those days would have done. There was a huge amount of money in this. There was an enormous number of photographs taken of people, carte de visite and all the rest of it, some of them very charming, and these pictures have been sent to me across the internet because of the website that I've set up. And it's very interesting to receive anything along these lines. The studio in Gosport was that, and I went and visited it. I didn't buy any shoes, they didn't fit, but that was the studio in Gosport where the West company started. These are the brothers West, which you heard about just now. Alfred is the second one in from the left. Always a bit of a joker, I think, and jokers themselves, because they also like to be photographed with hats on and with hats off. This one comes from my cousin in Vancouver, Eric. This is from Alfred West's own biography, which I have the only copy of, the transcript copy of. He describes how in 1882 he was inspired, really, to start taking photographs from what he was seeing on the water and the sea. And these pictures are taken, not as stills in fact, but they're taken from some of the film material, I wasn't call it video, film material that Alfred West did make later on. And it's the saddest possible thing that all this material has probably been lost, because you can see the wonderful composition and how those would have looked on the screen. He took a photograph of HMS Bacchante, and he said it's a trivial incident because Captain Balliston of the Royal Yacht happened to see a copy of this snapshot. It's very interesting to think that a photographer who took photographs, obviously, of many people, had become inducted into quite high society. We believe that Alfred West may have been a Freemason, which is neither negative nor positive statement. He just made a lot of contacts that way, because later on he talks familiarly about how I was talking to the Duke of York and he suggested. So to get into the whole business of working with film and the Navy, I think he had some quite good connections. As you see, he was so pleased that he wanted the photographer to meet the Prince of Wales, which indeed he did. And that is in fact HMS Bacchante, which I managed to find from an archive shot. It may or may not be by West, but it's certainly of the period. When he was photographing, he actually rigged up a camera inside a boat, which you'll see in a minute. He invented the whole thing himself to provide a kind of gimbal for taking film. That was the yacht that he used to take photographs, and you can see the gimbal in the middle there. And that's an actual diagram from West's biography of how the gimbal actually worked, all probably made by his father out of planks of wood and bits of string, with a weight at the bottom to stabilise. And that's Alfred West writing at the bottom, showing how it worked. He also, of course, had to invent a shutter, because from about 1881 onwards, dry plates were available, which made instantaneous photography possible. It wasn't possible before then, but he had not much in the way of a shutter. So he devised this, which uses an elastic band and a slider with a hole in it, and that was his invention, to give himself the shutter to take these kind of pictures. And these are the kind of pictures that he took. There's lots of writing there, and I apologise, you probably want to read it. But Lord Cecil's yacht, Chittywee, he went out and photographed it. Probably in the same lodge. And this was the kind of photograph that Alfred West was taking in the 1880s. I think that wow is the word. It is just quite extraordinary to think that he was in a sailing boat with that gimbal arrangement you've just seen. For this particular picture, he was just sailing on the quarter, obviously. There's Alfred. He probably shouted, smile, Sir Alfred. In the background, of course, you can see ships, tall ships, not identifiable, obviously, from there. That photograph won many prizes, of course, you might imagine. And he was awarded a lot of medals for his photographs. He entered lots of competitions, and he was very proud of the medals. This is actually taken from Our Navy moving pictures program later on, just to show the medals that he got. And my cousin in Australia has very kindly managed to photograph some of the medals for me. And imagine that the science of photography to give rise to this kind of work of art, a medal for the best picture, 1883. That is from the Newcastle on Tyne Northern Counties Photographic Association. I don't know if photographic associations these days issue medals quite of this type, but they are in the family collection in Australia and awarded to Messrs. West and Sons for yachting study. This one's from the Photographic Society of Ireland, as you see. And there's the obverse. 1884. So he was winning prizes very early, and that's Alfred West's medal collection, which is held, as I say, by my cousin Simon West in Australia. We won't go into detail with him now, but it is a quite extraordinary collection. In 1884, he took his most famous picture, and that is the picture in my cousin's stairwell. That is actually an enlargement, obviously, from the plate, which you can see from the domestic detail here. That is a seriously big picture. It hung in my grandmother's house in her hall in the highest part she could find. And a copy of that, in fact, does hang in the New York Yacht Club. And these are some of the reviews of the time of the quality of the pictures. And that is actually a scan for the image. And if you just notice in the cross trees, there is a crew member trying to recover this outball, which is flying around. And that outball passed directly over Alfred West's head, very nearly wrapped itself around his neck. And remember, he was still filming from a sailing yawl with a camera mounted on that contraption, and he was sailing under the lee of a ship like that, travelling at that kind of speed, with that kind of bone in its teeth. This was a very, very brave and dramatic man. A showman, really, in every way. We keep finding pictures. Somebody sent me this from America, and I wrote to Beacon of Cows, and they have found me the original, and I have a print of that now. It was cracked during the war in an air raid, but I've repaired it with Photoshop, and I now have a very fine print of that, courtesy of Beacon of Cows. These, of course, were the kind of yachts that raced for the America's Cup. We now talk about the film processing, and those of you who know anything about film will find this statement quite remarkable. The developing done in a pan, the films were hung over to dry like so much washing. I'd not heard of acetone for joining together different lengths of film. So in those days, the films were all laced up, shown, 2 or 3 minutes, taken out, some lantern slides shown, and then some more film. But this is the good bit. Anybody who knows anything about this kind of film. The films were dried after developing by being wound around a drum, made of slats, being dried by a row of gas jets. Has anybody ever seen the film of what happens when you burn nitrate film?
Yeah.
It is astonishing. A brave man. This is Alfred West filming the Fleet Review. I would love to have said it's 1897, but those of you who are naval historians will notice straight away that it's 1911 from the fleet behind there. But that is Alfred West with his camera, possibly an Alfred Darling camera, possibly a James Adams camera, we don't really know, filming from the deck in the 1911. Okay, now so he became introduced to the Admiralty. We don't quite know how this happened, but the first picture that I found it in the archive at Hove Museum, is this one, which is a lantern slide, and it depicts mines laid along a wall with a diagram at the back, I think, showing how the mines are to be set into the sea to provide a pattern. And quite clearly it says West South Sea at the bottom left, number 185. So it's quite clear that West had a contract with the Admiralty for photographing naval munitions and things of that sort. I think that's where that came from. I think he made the contacts which allowed him then to start filming the discharge of torpedoes. I rather like this because the lower boom here is very, very clear. The tiny ropes for getting down to the gigs. This was one of the drill ships in Portsmouth Harbour, which were kept for the purposes of torpedo training. So they would have been dummies, but they would have had compressed air to launch them. And he took sequences with his lantern slide, and there we are. So that's the sort of thing that he was filming for the Admiralty, making the contacts at the same time, which I think led to this sort of thing. Hopefully this will work. Is there a mouse on that computer?
Yes.
Can you point the mouse directly at the middle of the picture and go click? Click. No, just click it. Sorry. Sorry. Left click. I'm crossing my fingers. Okay. What would normally happen? Let's try last one. Okay, that was a left click, wasn't it? In principle, that would have actually, you'd have seen the torpedo. You'll see it again in a minute, don't worry. So in 1897, the Crescent was toured, made a big tour with the royal family on board. I think that's probably Fort Blockhouse, I'm not quite sure. And HMS Crescent went on a royal tour, and Alfred West went with it, and he filmed the family. And at the end of the tour, they liked the film so much, they said, I'm sure Mum would like to see these. So he took them to Osborne House and gave what we probably believe, although I'm sure that the BFI will correct me, possibly the first Royal Command performance. He was actually told to go and show them to grandmother. They hung a sheet up between 2 rooms, he brought his equipment over, and he showed the films, and Queen Victoria was amused. We also have the programme, which I won't show you now, to show you the kind of scenes that were shown. So in 1897, he started the Our Navy Company. That was the time of the Fleet Review. He was at the Fleet Review and managed to film and photograph the Turbinia at speed during its famous pass through the lines, chased and not caught by the picket boats. He had this privileged access to any part of the Navy he wanted to go to. The Navy never paid him anything. He did it all because he believed in the Navy, he believed in the power of his film, and all facilities were given to him, but he was never actually paid to do any of this. So that was the cruise of the Crescent. That's actually a photograph taken on the cruise of the Crescent, again, which would have been a lantern slide on Queen Victoria's doorway on a sheet. It's a charming picture, and you can see that a lot of work has been done by the seamanship branch there with that beautiful calling there. I love it. This is a contemporary review, which I won't ask you to read now, but I have brought it with me to see. Just a contemporary review saying Messrs. West and Son, C.P.O. McGregor. C.P.O. McGregor was in fact his assistant in filming and photographing, as you'll see later on. And this is a description from the press of Her Majesty sat in the drawing room. The pictures were shown up on a screen fixed in the doorway. The lanterns being operated from the dining room. Might have been back projection actually, 20 minutes long. And later on in 1901, he did the same thing after the cruise of the Ophir, which was made an HMS, it was a merchant ship, it was made HMS for the purpose of world cruise, which he sent C.P.O. McGregor on with his camera to film the whole event. And that was then shown at Sandringham, and these are the telegrams which we still have copies of, which were inviting him, come to Wolferton Station by 12:05. You'll have sufficient time to prepare for entertainment. From Sir Charles Cust, replying to Charles Cust, arrive at Wolferton, give you plenty of time to set up. And then when he finished, he sent a telegram back to the anchorage at Portsmouth, which was his headquarters, and he had a code word. He said, if it goes well, I will send the word snap. So he's put the word snap to say words, like email in those days, of course. Congratulations from His Majesty. So that sequence showed it was a successful event. We do in fact have Edward VII's diary comment from that. Alfred West tells us that it was full of diplomats and crowned heads and goodness knows what else. Actually, we discovered it was actually the servants and the ground staff who were actually invited to the film show, but there we are. But he was a great showman, he liked it. He then took, because he had shown this sort of thing to the Queen, 1897 we are now, he then booked the Portland Hall in Portsmouth, and that was a great success. He then went to St James's Constable in Piccadilly, and then took up residence at the Polytechnic Regent Street, University of Westminster, until 1913, with very, very regular shows, fantastically reviewed. This is one of the playbills from the Portland Hall, almost the very first show he made, and you can see the kind of presentation that was made there. It describes what was happening. Captain H.R.H. Duke of York inspecting the march around the quarterdeck, physical drill, midshipmen, sailors dancing, that kind of thing. And this is one of the early bills from the Polytechnic in Regent Street, and again, as you see, Our Navy, huge billing. All over London these posters were, he was showing 2 or 3 presentations a day, all fully attended, 2 shillings entrance. This became a major operation because he had about 50 staff within about 12 months of starting. So he wasn't just a one-man band just going around doing stuff on his own. This was a real system. So these are the places where he lived in Portsmouth. If you know Portsmouth, you recognise it well. He had his house there, and he had his shop there. And in fact, they're still there. In fact, it's even still called the Anchorage, which I think is rather nice. And it was my interest, my parents' very first married home when they were married, although he didn't own it then. It's just possible that under the floorboards or in the attic that there may be some of the film. Very sadly, the narrative films that he made don't survive as far as we know, but they cover topics such as this. Naval training from leaving home. Here's the boy leaving home on the train, his mother bidding a tearful farewell. Here he is, I'm not quite sure if he's about to leave or if he's arrived, but he's kitted out, which is just as well. And there he is. The top one, interestingly, shows, I think it shows being measured for his uniform. It's called Measure for His Uniform. And amusingly, it's actually photographed on the quarterdeck of HMS Victory. It's not clear to me that every entrant to the service was kitted out and measured on the deck of HMS Victory, but it probably made a nice scene. And down below, these are some of the boys who would have joined the Navy in the late 1890s, early 1900s, as part of another of his sequences. That's the one I was thinking about, yeah. That's the obvious place to be measured up. And then after he becomes a sailor, he returns home, and this is called the trysting place. And again, the sequence here showing, possibly vignetted, rather romantic, of Jack in his full number 4. Is it number 4 or number 8? Number 4. It's number 4 ring, proposing to his sweetheart. That's the only way to do it, really. How can we verify material was made by West? Well, interestingly, as part of obtaining copyright for the material, Alfred West had to deposit with Stationers' Hall a statement about each scene with a clip of the film to verify it. And a number of these were found in the Public National Record Office. In fact, they had the original nitrate film in them, stuck to bits of paper inside the filing cabinets, and that's been rectified now, I'm pleased to say. And so as a result, we can take some of these strips, as you see here, here's one of them. We can take these strips, and using modern technology, we can actually animate them, and that's what I've done. I've taken a number of those which were found for me by David Lee of the Wessex Film Archive, and I've been able to animate them. And these were from the copyright assertion slips. This petty officer will never ever be able to reprimand this sailor. And these people will always be just about to say ship ahoy. You'll see more of this in a minute. So these are all taken from copyright assertion documents, and I haven't actually had a chance to go there. This is quite interesting. He writes in his autobiography that he found some sailors hanging around on the South Sea seafront, and he said, come with me to the skating rink, put these skates on, and then he set his camera up and filmed the sailors. Now this is in the shortest possible clip, but as they say, with hilarious results. The interesting thing is the lady with the feather in her hat is completely ignoring this. Just sailing on. It'd be so wonderful to find the full clip. When I animated that, I sat in my bedroom and I just did the last frame, and I realised that nobody had actually seen that little lady moving across there with these sailors falling about for probably 80 or 90 years. So it was really a rather moving moment. His colleague John Adams, a Portsmouth person, invented a form of camera for him. The issue with cinematography at that time was that it was very heavily patented. The Lumiere brothers, we think he may have had a Lumiere camera actually, the Lumiere brothers and Paul had set up such restrictive patents it was very difficult to make their own films without paying fairly large royalties. So there was a great fostering an invention to invent ways of getting around the patents, and this was John Adams' patent, and I think he probably used that. We then become a national organisation, and in fact you can go all around the country to local newspapers for this period, and you can find reviews, incredibly glowing reviews, I have to say, of the Our Navy film shows. You see expanded into the Army and the Colonies later on. And he really became national. He went to Canada, took a boat to Canada, and he had this flag made. It was about 40 feet long. And he said to the skipper, do you mind if I fly my flag as we enter New York? He said, oh no, no problem at all, I'd be delighted to. When the captain saw the flag at the masthead, he was a little bit aghast. But he was such a showman. This is the Polytechnic in Regent Street, by the way. It's still there. And in fact, the cinema inside it has recently been restored. So in fact, one day I'd love to give this talk in that cinema. This is the kind of thing he did with the films. They were silent. This is actually from the Polytechnic's collection. But I do believe this is exactly how it was done. Here is the film going on. And here behind the scenes are all kinds of sound effects going on. We have a lot of contemporary reports that there was sound, there was music, possibly singing. He was a very keen fan of Gilbert and Sullivan. This sort of animated the... In fact, we have reports saying that people did feel seasick after the... I've thrown these around the room. Has anybody opened one yet? He made hundreds of these, possibly thousands. And they were folded up little packets, so a little bit like pills or powders for taking for excess, probably, to get rid of the night before. And he left them lying around on buses, trains, cafes, and people thought, oh, great, fantastic, I'll open this and have this seltzer. And when they opened the packet, as you open yours, find it. This is actually Bournemouth. So you see, this is specially put together in Bournemouth. We would have saturated Bournemouth with these little things. Enormous houses. You have to actually put on additional shows. You sometimes had these runs extended for a week, 2 weeks, or more. He actually got a prize from the Cinematograph Weekly for this particular idea. So that was. This is a cardboard medal which I found, which again you could kind of buy or you could wear or you could use it to advertise. He also had cigarette cards, Ogden cigarettes, cigarette card series for our Navy, and also postcard series. Enormous numbers of postcards were made. We turn up, in fact, as a postcard collector at the Royal Naval Museum, Submarine Museum in Gosport, who let me have this. And this is actually a postcard which has been written by somebody, so you can see what fun you would have if all these boys were your brothers. What ho for pillow fights? Well, that was a postcard, as I said, but it's a still from one of the Our Navy films. There's another still called something like Below There, Steam for Full Speed. And it's been coloured. A.J. West, FRG West. The cameras he made, we don't really know a lot about the cameras. There is a suggestion that he bought one from Lumiere. He had the John Adams camera. I went to Hove Museum and found this picture, found this camera there. It's behind a screen, you can't see it very clearly, but it's an Alfred Darling camera. And I imagine, being a South Coast filmmaker, he certainly would have looked at Alfred Darling's cameras. And here is a picture of Alfred West at a military review. Not quite sure where it is, or it could be Governor's Green in Portsmouth, with one of his cameras, and you can see there he is, there's the camera, and that's the kind of thing that he did. In 1905, he was asked to give a film show for the Nelson Centenary, and that's indeed what I put, the bust I put on the front there. That is the bust. He was awarded as a result of being there. British and Foreign Sailors Society gave him that. It was under the auspices of the Navy League, founded in 1894 to promote interest and become a ginger group for increasing the number of naval ships. We want 8 and we won't wait. You probably heard that slogan if you know about the Navy League. I looked at the contemporary reports in the Times for this. We were always brought up to believe this was the pinnacle of his career. He'd shown to royalty and that kind of thing. Actually didn't show it to royalty. All that royalty did was to give the royal box, make the royal box available at a slightly enhanced price for anybody who wanted to watch the celebration. And there were 2 celebrations, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. But he was awarded this bust with this inscription. And these busts do turn up. They were given to all kinds of people at the time, including the mayor of Wimbledon, who, according to the press report, made an unexpectedly long speech. I hope mine won't be. And there we are. That's the only copy we have at the moment of the celebration poster at the time. In 1912-13, he sold up and prepared a catalogue. I've given Rose one of the catalogues for the BFI. The catalogue is in the British Library. We've had it turned into a PDF file, and you can actually download it from the internet website. And we've also had it transcribed so that you can actually search for text inside the catalogue as well. So if clips are discovered, it would be a resource for helping us to identify them. And to be honest, if we can be published. There is a copy on the table there, which anybody wants to look at, they're very welcome to. The effect on recruitment was really quite remarkable. We heard yesterday that the Navy didn't encourage film in the early days before the war, but he was very, very much encouraged. And this is a statement which came from an old sailor. I saw a flickering rain splash picture, sailors, old sea dogs. It was called Our Navy. He was Commander Ronald Strudd. He wrote this in 1950. And he said, "It shaped my life. Most boys lose their ambition to be cowboys and Indians. The world of ironclads and jack tars held sway. If ever a film impressed a boy, it was that one. When one afternoon my mother said, 'What do I want to be?' I said very simply, 'I'm going to be a sailor.'" And that was the effect it had on the people who saw it. There was another West, it's sometimes confused, T.J. West. He was an Australian. He attempted to take credit for Alfred West's work by showing things. He was deprecated, but tolerated by West. Finally, this is a picture of the Marketplace Reading. You may wonder why I've included that. You look at the bottom left-hand side, and you can actually see one of West's billboards has found its way into a commercial postcard. We now have a brief film clip, which the left-hand one I want to use. Yeah, is that one? Yeah, that's the one. And this music has been set to this by my cousin Charles Whatever. He's in the audience, and that's the left-hand one, please. And I think you'll enjoy it. wants to see it later on, I'm happy to talk about the sequences.
Any questions for David? Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Magnificent material. Yes, John.
David, just in that last sequence of the laying of the wreath,
Yes.
is it possible to suspect that that might be somebody who was actually filmed?
I can tell you exactly who it was. At the time, as the issue my light went on. It was actually somebody who'd served under Admiral Hyde Parker. Admiral Hyde Parker was one of Nelson's captains, and so that's the link. So he actually served as possibly a boy under Hyde Parker, and he was 90 years of age. And the boy standing there, his name was Frank Begg. We know this from newspaper reports. Frank Begg then grew up and had more children. His family repeated the exact scene on the 21st of October 2005, and they've pledged as a family to repeat it every 100 years thereafter.
Yeah, just a quick one, David. Obviously you mentioned you have more film. I mean, certainly we'd be very pleased if you could come back perhaps to one of our meetings.
Well, I could, although it's actually not much longer than that. It's the right-hand button, actually.
Oh,
so,
okay.
because what Charles did very cleverly was he actually edited down a bit to make it work with the music, and the music is just tremendous. It's exactly the kind of thing. Charles is at the Royal College of Music and he's studying film composition. It is a little bit longer, but
Are there any other of those sort of bits?
well, this is the big problem there are.
That's it.
We really have got. The longest sequence of all is not in the catalogue. It's a procession of Freemasons going to St Francis Church in Portsmouth for the grand opening. It's very, very long. It's a sort of Mitchell and Kenyon type of thing of just an actuality of a procession. It is quite fascinating, but it was definitely by him that he never put into his catalogue, which is why we think maybe the Freemason connection. The picture of horses was found in the same can as an identified West piece, so it may or may not be correct. But I think everything else pretty much is West through and through.
You do have a lot of stills now.
We have still, a lot of it's electronic, I have to say, because my father accidentally or on purpose threw away off the material, but not before it had been copied and sent to the archives where I got it back from. But stuff is turning up all the time, I have to say.
So I was saying particularly the naval, any naval stuff.
Yes. Well, for example, the chap down at the Royal Naval Submarine Museum, who makes a collection of these cars, and I think he's only got 4 more to collect or something. These are all stills, promotional stills from the thing. But yes, there's a lot more one to say, but that's the time.
We have time for more questions, ladies and gentlemen.
Or just one small one.
Yes.
You said the last one, the South Sea, did you?
No, in fact, Charles put South Sea as 2 words, but actually it's South Sea.
Oh.
One off the second bit. So I do have quite a lot of material here which I'm going to put out in the break. If anybody wants to pick it up and look at it, they're very welcome. I'm happy to do that. Thank you very much.
Well, that's an absolutely magnificent presentation. Some superb material, really mind-blowing, and a truly talented individual. You got a point to make, Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I apologise for the extraneous noise. This was not sound effects from Alfred West. It was 2 building contractors on the roof directly above us here. And they hadn't been told we had a conference, and they said, well, when are you starting? And I said, we've started. And they said, when are you finishing? I said, 5 o'clock. And I said, oh, B. So they said, please give us 10 minutes and then we'll go away. Let's hope it doesn't rain. Thank you.
Well, that leads us on